Hello, my boys and girls. Hello. All of you good boys and girls, guess what season is coming up? It's Christmas. Christmas, do you hear? What are the great books that you like to read? What are the great stories that you like to hear on Christmas Day and in the morning? So, until Christmas, the night before Christmas, that's when my husband, Mr. Claus, will join us in 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. But until then, he's busy with his elves in the workshop, and he's making all those toys for those good boys and girls. I'm going to start reading you a story on Thursdays. Will you join me? Will you join me? If you're a good boy or girl, I'll call out your name during the story. So, our first book is going to be Santa's Book of Names. Okay? Are you ready? Let's begin. Book of Names. Santa's Book of Names. I have seen that book and you are all on it. And if you listen quietly to our story, you will be on the nice list. Everyone's in the book. Are you on the nice list or are you on the naughty list? You only have a few more weeks to move to the nice list. Don't forget, so listen to your mom and dad. Help around the house. Do good in school. Go to bed on time. We shall begin. Miss Claus got to put on her readers. Edward was good at numbers. He could count all the way to 50. He could recite the alphabet and knew the names of most dinosaurs. But when he opened a book and tried to read, he just couldn't. Edward's teacher was concerned. She sent a note home to Edward's mother and his father, urging that he be tested to find out what the problem was. No test, Edward's mother wrote back. Patience. She believed in her little boy. Here is the picture. You see the dinosaur? At bedtime on Christmas Eve, Edward's father read aloud Edward's favorite Christmas story. In the story, Santa Claus delivers presents to boys and girls around the world. How does Santa Claus remember the names of all those boys and girls he gives presents to? Edward asked his father as his father finished. And where? And how does he remember where they live? And what toys to bring them? Oh, he must have a good memory, said Edward's father. Or maybe he has it written down in a book, said Edward's mother, as she came in to say goodnight. Here's Edward and his father reading their favorite Christmas book, and there's Mama coming in and saying, "It is time for bed, little Edward." And here's Edward reading. We're going to see, is he reading? After his mother and father had kissed him and turned off the light, Edward took his flashlight from under his pillow and tried to read the story himself. He wanted more than anything to be able to read. He almost could, but not quite. Just as he turned the last page, Edward heard a noise. He sat up and he listened. Yes, there it was again. What do you think? What do you think it is? Edward slid out of bed and tiptoed down the stairs. When he peeked into the living room, he saw that his stocking was filled and that the presents were under the tree. Santa had come and gone. Oh, how exciting! And Edward had missed him. Then Edward noticed something else. Something lying on the floor right in front of the fireplace. It was a book. He bent down, he picked it up. The book was thick and it was heavy and probably very, very old, kind of like Santa Claus. For the cover was worn and the pages were tattered. Santa must have dropped it. Edward suddenly realized. Look at the book. He needs that book, y'all. I have to keep up with that book 364 days a year. He ran to the front door. He threw it open and stepped outside. Just as he did, a long shadow passed over him and glided across the fresh moonlit snow. Santa, wait! Cried Edward. You forgot your book. But in the jingle of sleigh bells and the rush of wind, Santa didn't hear him. In an instant, he was gone. How far could Santa get without his book? Edward wondered. And when would Santa realize the book was missing? How would he know where to find it? How? Then Edward had an idea. That Edward's quick on his feet, isn't he? He hurried back into the house, quickly put on his boots, mittens, and coat and hat, because Edward knows his mother would be very upset if he went out with his pajamas only. So take a little that helps you get on the nice list. Don't go out in the cold without shoes and coat and hat and gloves, okay? He hurried back into the house and got those things on because he knew his mama would want him to. He knew what letter the word book started with. So he tromped out a huge, large B in the snow. Would Santa see it? And even if he did, would he know what it meant? Then Edward heard the sound of sleigh bells growing closer. He looked up. I remember this now. High overhead, Santa's sleigh appeared. It circled once and went into the steep dive, gliding to stop right beside Edward. Let's turn the page. Let's see what is going to happen. Oh, look, it's Santa Claus, my dear Santa. Hello, Edward. I see that you found my book, said Santa, who looked very much like the Santa in Edward's storybook, except that his nose wasn't round. That's a common misconception. His nose is pointed like ours. That book contains the name and addresses of all the children in all the world, Santa explained. Most of them I know by heart, but I can't always remember which present to leave. That's why I need my book. Edward held out the book for Santa. Thank you, Edward, said Santa. He gently patted Edward's head. It would be a big help if you would come along and read it to me when I forget something. But Edward can't read. Let's see how this ends. Ride with Santa in his sleigh? Edward could not believe his ears. He stared down at the glistening snow. Oh, I can't read. He's thinking. Oh, I can't help you, Santa, he stammered. I can't read. Now there is another good thing that Edward did. He told the truth, even though the truth might have made it where he couldn't go on the sleigh with Santa. He told the truth, and his mama and daddy will be very proud that he told the truth. Look at this. Can you just hear the sleigh bells and all the little reindeer? Come along anyway. You can hold the book and open the pages so they don't blow away, said Santa. I'll promise I'll have you back before dawn. Edward smiled. Okay, he said, and he jumped in the sleigh beside Santa, who bundled him up in thick woolen robes and placed the book in his lap. Then Santa gave a low whistle, and the reindeer lunged forward, lifting the sleigh into the crisp, clean air. From rooftop to rooftop they went. At each stop, Santa would disappear down the chimney with a small bag of toys. I bet that bag wasn't that small. Well, here's a big page. Presently they came to the great city. Skyscrapers, dark and silent, loomed around and above them as Santa made his way from one apartment house to the next. 1 million children must live in the city, thought Edward. And Santa delivers toys to every one of them. How he did it, Edward couldn't say. Does time slow down, he wondered, or even stop? On Christmas Eve, while Santa is about his work, here's the city. It's really dark in the city, and he keeps going from apartment building to apartment and delivering all the presents to the nice list. On they went to other cities and to every town and village in between. I'll go wherever there's a child, Santa said. He doesn't care. He's gonna get the job done, y'all. That's what Santa does. All this time, Edward had been holding the book and turning the pages so that Santa, his glasses balanced. He wears them on the end of his nose like this. His glasses, balanced on the end of his nose, could glance over and read what was written beside each name. He read aloud, Pablo Lopez, paint set, and Lucy Wells, a baseball mitten, as Edward followed along. Sean Rankin, a video game. Randy Hatmaker, a puppy dog. So he's reading all these names, and Edward is watching. He's watching, and he's listening. Let's continue on. Let's see where this is going. It's getting good. It's getting real good. They were crossing a vast ocean, skimming above the waves, when a huge seabird, this is a good part of the book now. I remember this part of the story when Santa was telling it back to me. I remember this part. A seabird flew in front of them. Now, don't get hopeless when this happens, okay? As they went past the bird, just the tip of the wing brushed Santa's glasses and sent them spinning off. Down the glasses fell until with a faint plop, splash, they entered the dark sea and disappeared. Now, here's where we're thinking this is going to end badly, right? This is going to be ending badly. Watch this. This is where you got to persevere. Press on, you know. Oh, dear, my Santa explained. Now I really need your help, Edward. Do you think you can read the words to me? Edward knew Santa was counting on him. Whew. I'll try, he said. Good, said Santa. I was up to the 7th name on that page. Ben Hill. Edward counted the page, down the page to number 7. Beside the name was a word that looked very familiar to him. Edward began. That's right, Santa said. Just sound it out. Book, said Edward. Book? A book it is, then, declared Santa as he landed the sleigh and stepped out. What's next, Edward? Santa asked upon his return. Edward looked up at Santa. Doll, he said proudly. After that, Edward continued to read the words to Santa. And while Santa was delivering one present, Edward was getting another one ready to go. They are working together. Look at sweet Edward. He's just reading away. He doesn't even realize he's reading because he's helping someone. He's helping Santa Claus. When you help others get what they want, gosh, you're going to get what you want. Look at that sleigh. It just soaring through that sky. Just soaring through that sky. Finally, they were finished. Takes one night to get around the world, deliver all them presents. He comes in cold and hungry. So you be sure to leave him some cookies because that helps him along his way. Edward closed the book of names and he placed it on the seat beside him as Santa emerged from the last chimney and took one final present out of his bag. It was a book. Yeah, my husband knows the best gifts to give each and every child. But you got to write us a letter. You got to write the letter. You got to put in the words. Put in your request. Merry Christmas, said Santa as he handed the book to Edward. Thank you for all of your help. I couldn't have done it without you. Then he took up the reins once more, and in an instant they were streaking through the dawning sky. Edward opened his book to the first page, and he stared down at the words. He must have fallen asleep on the way home, because next thing he knew, his mother was gently shaking him and softly calling his name. Merry Christmas, Edward, she whispered. Time to wake up and see what Santa Claus brought you. Edward opened his eyes, his cute little sleepy eyes. He was lying on the sofa in front of the fireplace. Look at what Santa left you, said Edward's father as he bent down and picked up the book. Would you like me to read it to you? Edward smiled. No thanks, Dad, he replied. Let me read it to you. There's him getting up, and there's the book. He's asleep on that couch. And he did. So, you see, Santa Claus knows the very best gifts to get. And he helped that little Edward read. And now Edward's been entering all the spelling bees. He's been doing an incredible job at his reading. And he keeps working at his reading. And just like we're going to do. Now listen, y'all. What we're going to do is every Thursday, I'm going to get on here and I'm going to read you a story. And we're going to do this up to the night before Christmas when we're going to have a special guest. Now, I'm going to get Papa right before his big trip to deliver the presents. I'm going to get Papa to sit down with me and we're going to read y'all a Christmas story together. Now, we're going to have some special guests. We'll have maybe Rudolph or I know one of the elves want to read. One of the elves want to read to us on one of these Thursdays. And we'll have that done. And I think the Grinch, whose heart is now 10 times bigger. It's 10 times bigger than it was in that book. Now, he's gone good. He's went from bad to good. He's good now. So what we'll do is we'll get the Grinch to come in here and read his story to y'all. Because that's a famous story now. That's a famous story. So we'll do this on Thursday nights. And you get your kids, you gather around, get them in bed, get them with their little PJs on and maybe some little socks, keep those feet warm. And we'll do this every Thursday, okay? Y'all come on in to Miss Claus Boozum and we'll do it every Thursday, okay? Y'all have a good night. And remember, Santa has a book of names. He's checking it twice. He's going to find out who's naughty or nice, and you got a couple more weeks to shape up and get back on that nice list. That's where you want to be. That is where we want to be, okay, guys? So inbox me your names so that I can hi before and after we read the book, okay? Y'all have a good night. Thank y'all. Thank you, Jared. Y'all have a good night now. Bye-bye.